You too.
I'm a big fan of your work.
Oh, thank you.
So I'll jump right in.
Okay.
I read your latest book, and in your comments, you talked about how this is your finest work ever. Can you tell me why you think that is?
Well, of course, I think we're talking about Flags on the Bayou.
Yes.
It's a difficult book I wrote because I think I have over 6 points of view, and the differences in the characters are dramatic. And it's based in the story is based in the year 1863. So all of those things were challenges, but I think it's a remarkable story because it's not really so much about the Civil War or war between the states. It's about today. It's still with us. We found that out in the last 8 years.
That's interesting. I didn't actually get that from the book. I was more thinking about the history of what was going on then.
Yeah. Well, also it's the story of Hannah out of the Old Testament.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
But another, yeah.
can you tell me about why you chose the way to deliver that story with the chapters where everybody was talking from their own point of view? I've read a lot of your books and I've never seen that before. I may have missed one or two. Can you tell me why you chose that way?
That's a good question. Because the war between the states, the Civil War, we have actually multiple titles for our Civil War, an argument over the argument. But it is the different set of eyes that you use when you examine a piece of history that occurred between 1861 and 65. The amount of carnage that took place during those 4 years shocked the whole world. It's over 680,000 men died, and it was for nothing. Ultimately, it was for nothing, and it's still there. And that divisiveness here is, oh, I fear for our country today. Put it that way. I'm very afraid for our country.
Yeah, it does seem to be heading in the wrong direction.
Yeah, but but there's a lot of humor in this book, and
oh, it's great.
One of the voices, he is a Southerner, man who was wounded at Shiloh, or anyway, but he tries to explain to people why non-owners of slaves were fighting in the war. Why would they do that? Only 25% of the white population in the South had anything to do with slavery. 75% had no interest, financial interest in it. So how did they get mixed up in it? And he says they didn't have telegraphs. They didn't have newspapers. They didn't even know there was a war until one morning they woke up and the Yankees were burning down their barn, digging a train in their flower bed and killing all their animals. And it really started off their day bad. But that was it.
So was there a specific thing that drove you to choose those characters?
Well, they all have a background that's real. And in fact, that isn't the case with just this book. All of my books are like that. The characters come out of reality, but I never see them coming. They're metamorphic. And but I think the characters are real. The story they have is real. And the best characters in it, the strongest, are the women. And they're very strong women. You know, actually, our whole history has an enormous influence by strong women, but they've always had to be pushed aside. And, you know, the wife of John Adams, for example. The wife of John Adams is a great woman. Washington's wife. My heaven's sakes, you know, oh, good heavens, Florence Nightingale.
Yep.
Many, it's like Christianity. If it were not for women, there would be no Christianity. But they don't get the credit, you know.
So can you tell me a little bit about your next book? I hear, and I'm a huge Dave Robichaux fan, and I've always loved Clete Purcell, and I always wanted to hear or read a book that focused on him, because I think he might be the best sidekick ever.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about Clete?
Well, Clete's one of my favorite guys too, and he's a wonderful character. And he comes out of medieval drama. You know what's called the plays. Name goes away from me, but there were plays that were conducted for the peasantry in the 14th and 15th century, and he plays the part of the Joker, the man who's always up to something, but Clete's much more than that. That he's a very intelligent man. He's a brave man. But he and Dave Robichaux, his partner, are one is like the face on a coin, and on the other side of the coin, we have Dave Robichaux on one side of the coin and Clete Purcell on the other side. One is lacking if the other is not there. And of course, they are sewn at the hip. And Dave meditates on things. He's very insular, and Clete is I think I describe him, or Dave describes him, as a wrecking ball with spikes all over it, swinging through the side.
He's a man of action.
That's it. That's Clete. But he is a great.
Can you tell me a little bit about what the Clete book is about? I mean, I'm imagining that Dave will be in this in some way. What's the premise?
Well, it's a very unusual book, and it has a lot of mystical material in it, and all my work does. And I believe in the spiritual world, but in this case, Clete, who has had an obsession with anti-Semitism, discovers that he has a cohort, and it is Joan of Arc, and she appears in the story.
Okay.
And they form a bond, and she, in effect, needs him more than he needs her, because of course she's taken eventually by the horrible men that sent her to the stake. It's just you know, the crimes, the official crimes and cruelty of the medieval age make you wonder how human beings could do these things to one another. But anyway, it's a great story, I think. And also that Clete cannot make anyone, he never tries to tell people that while he's talking, he isn't just talking to a wall, he's talking to Joan of Arc. But anyway, it also deals, though, with our own problems. And again, everything I've ever written since I published my first story in 1956 has been written about justice. It's always been about justice, and this one is too.
And that's coming out next June?
Yeah, it's to be out in June of 24.
All right. Well, I'll be asking for it for a birthday present.
Well, I sure hope you like it.
I'm sure I will. I love the character, and I'm always looking. Like when I go to a used book sale, I'm always looking for the few Robichaux stories that I haven't read yet. So I'll be on the lookout for this one at my local bookstore.
Well, we'll do better than that. We'll send you a book. Just
Oh, thank you. That's nice of you. Is there another Robichaux in the works as well?
Yeah, there is. Yeah, I'm going to publish 4 books in 2 years.
Oh man, that's great.
One, I'm 2/3 into a Dave Robichaux book, and let's see, I have a collection of short stories that'll be out in about 3 weeks called Harbor Lights.
Yep.
And it's one of the best things I've written, I believe. And I've already written another book in the Holland series, and it's based loosely on my mother. And its title is Don't Forget Me, Little Bessie.
Okay. I like the Holland series as well.
1906.
Can you tell me, what kind of advice you'd give to somebody who is interested in getting into the novel writing? How did you get into it, and what would have been some of the rules that you followed for yourself?
Well, that's another very good question. And this is out of my experience. There are 2 things that are very important. Number one, if that person feels he has the gift, he should never leave it, never leave it, never leave it. And secondly, he should never let others discourage him, because that's what happens. More people will discourage than encourage a young writer. People will laugh at you. Oh, they don't mean it, but it hits home. It's a very solitary kind of endeavor. But here's the thing I've always felt. Every writer knows that there's a flame inside of him that has a purpose. And another hand, not our own, a hand outside of ourselves has given us that. And for that reason alone, it will be eventually realized. The person's best, wildest dreams will come true, but he cannot quit. I remember what a person said to me about struggle. He said, bear down on the batter, but don't keep score. Just throw the ball as hard as you can. And about the bottom of the 9th, look over your shoulder at the scoreboard, and you'll be pleasantly surprised at the arithmetic. It's a pretty good line.
Yeah.
The priest told me that.
Now, how did you discover you had your gift? How did that come to pass?
I never, and since I was a little boy, wanted to do anything other than write. My first cousin, we grew up together 4 months apart, was Andre Dubus. And Andre Dubus is one of America's greatest short story writers. He's been gone now about 20 years, result of an accident. But my father was a engineer, pipeliner. He did lots of things. He was a chemist in Cuba. But he wanted to be a historian and a journalist. But he had a job during the Depression. It was just about $200 a month. But you were in tall cotton if your dad had a salary of $200. And he couldn't quit his job. And he was never able to do the thing he wanted. And he used to tell me again and again, he said, Jim, don't think about money. So think about the job you love and don't ever let go of it. And that's it. That's it. This has also been that the greatest enemy an artist has is vanity. And that the most dangerous words in the vocabulary of artists are the pronouns I, me, my, and myself. And if you see some fellow on television talking about his stardom or what a great painter he is or what a great writer he is at the apex of his career and he's about to just slide right downside the mountain. I have never seen the exception, never once. That's that vanity, lack of humility to a writer is not a virtue. It is a imperative. That's it. You can't have ego in your life. You gotta get it out of your life.
Who are your favorite writers? Contemporary, like people who are writing today.
Well, I haven't read that many of people who write today. I know the ones that have had the biggest influence on me. William Faulkner, certainly. I believe, let's put it this way. Who are the writers and what are the writers that younger people should know about and learn from? Number one, never read bad writing. It's like, it mess you up. It's like in basketball and tennis, there's that expression, don't watch somebody else's bad game. It'll get into you. Same thing. Okay, same thing. But William Faulkner's Sound in the Fury is probably the most experimental book ever written in the English language, more so than James Joyce even. But you learn from people like that. William Faulkner and, I think perhaps Scott Fitzgerald was the greatest, most lyrical American writer in our history. Nathaniel Hawthorne may be our best plotting man. He wrote wonderful books. In fact, he's not given the credit that has been given to, oh, golly, Moses, cohort. But anyway, the point is America has huge number of great literary artists. But it's a funny thing about American writing. It's usually discovered by people in other countries. It's usually the French. The French always recognize American writers before they're recognized at home. Same with the music. Always the French. the guys that gave us the Statue of Liberty. But
yeah, I was going to say they do have a love for America.
They do. I used to be in. I don't tell a long story. I was in. It's too long a story. I'm sorry.
So I'm going to wrap it up with.
Okay.
I'm going to wrap it up with this question for you, okay?
Okay.
And this actually comes from the person who I did the review for. He asked if I could ask this for him. He says, there's a writer out there, Joseph Epstein, a retired English professor, who says a novel does a fantastic job of touching on the vagaries of fate and enlarging our sense of human nature. In essence, Epstein says, it describes human foibles, thoughts, actions, and reality better than a nonfiction book. You've written a lot of novels, looked hard at the human condition. What advantage does a novelist hold when describing people, reality, and humanity?
Well, and in other words, it allows, the artist who is a fiction writer has ultimate latitude, right? A journalist or nonfiction writer does not have that. And I was never interested in it because there's no investigation. I don't mean that it's less or more, but it's its own kind of art. I was a journalist, And I learned a lot about people, but I didn't learn anything about writing. Uh, the early journalists who became great writers, like Stephen, golly Moses, The Red Badge of Courage. That's one of the best books ever written about war, but he had never gone to war. He did later in Cuba, but they learned how to write in a way that, in effect, other journalists and even literary writers had not, they hadn't gone there. In other words, they took a very simple 8th grade vocabulary and they learned that they did more with less than other people had done so. And that's why Ernest Hemingway used to always say, I always write more by what I do not write. He used to call it three button, I forget, there's a term for it, it's a pool shooting term for it. But anyway, it's those were the pioneers. And I think maybe the best literary book, the most poetic, is The Great Gatsby. Remember The Great Gatsby?
Yep.
That I think it owes, I think Fitzgerald, because he was a classic writer and he went to an expensive school, even though his family were not wealthy, but that they are indebted to what is called metaphysical imagery. And it takes us back to T.S. Eliot and to the Jesuit poet, God, my head's right. I kind of got up early this morning.
Yeah, it's a long day, right?
But anyway, it is the ability as a poet or as a fiction writer, the gift that we can investigate without any limitation, almost infinitely, the passions of the human mind. And I think Hemingway put it well once. He said that you have to learn the skill first, but then the greater challenge is to understand the human heart. And that's it. That I believe that this is what I feel, that there is a destiny in all of us. And if one's destiny is to be an artist, no matter what kind, and he has that feeling or she has that feeling, that don't worry, if all you do, just maybe every day, if it's just one line, don't let other people discourage you. There's a reason that you have the talent. It's going to be manifest in your life. I have never seen it correct. I see it. Look, something I was learned when I was 20 years old. I worked a little offshore oil exploration. It was 10 days on, 5 days off. I didn't have a land home, but I'd come, we would be 10 days out on the water, 5 days back on I'd go find some place to live, friends or whatnot. But I would write all those 5 days. And before I went back on the quarter boat, I would put all my, I was 20 years old, I would put all my poems, I wrote poems too, and my short stories, and mailed them all over the place. 10 days later, I got them right back rejected, but I learned something. The only way to do it is to give yourself it's a kind of a doctrine.
Okay.
That 36 hours at home and that's it, back in the mail. 36 hours, that's all you get. Why? Because when you leave your manuscript at home, you ensure failure. And you never do that. You wear them down. I call it Richard Nixon syndrome. You just keep bearing down on the butt.
Keep pounding away.
Down. grinding it away, and somebody will finally say, "Get this guy out of our hair, give him the White House."
Publish him.
And they did it. Yeah, travesty as a result. But that's it. That you never quit. That's it. You never quit.
That's awesome. I appreciate your time, Jim. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure meeting you, and I'll look forward to your next works.
Yeah, and be sure to call, and we'd love to give you all those books I told you about. So
Okay.
yeah,
Thank you,
have
sir.
a really nice. Okay, thanks
Merry
again for
Christmas.
having us. You too. All the
Bye-bye.
best. Yes, sir. Thank you.